My name is Jonathan Levy, and I am the self-proclaimed zero waste guy. I do my best to make as little garbage as possible to live as low impact as possible. So there's this official definition of zero waste. It means no bury, no burn, and no toxic discharge. So what that really means is that no bury, we don't want to put anything in a landfill, because once it's buried in the landfill, that resource is no longer available to us. No burn means we don't want to incinerate anything, because when you burn trash, all the chemicals that go into specifically making plastic get burned off into the atmosphere. And no toxic discharge means you don't want any byproduct of your manufacturing process to go into our water, into our soil, because once chemicals get into the soil and the water table, it's really hard to get them out. When I went zero waste, I was looking around in my house and how can I reduce packaging? And I was able to get rid of pretty much everything, but I realized that meat almost always comes on a styrofoam carton with cellophane around it, both of which are either not recyclable or very difficult to recycle. I started really acknowledging just the impact that livestock, which is just food that we raise specifically to eat, has on the environment. If livestock were their own country, they'd be the third biggest contributor to greenhouse gases after the US and China. I'll let you reuse it.
Yeah.
Life is inherently wasteful, and it's built into all the processes for when we go out. Restaurants are so accustomed to just throwing a straw in it, putting it in a plastic bag, putting it in a container. If it doesn't look right, they just throw it away. They don't think about it. So it's really hard to go out knowing that just interacting with any business, any restaurant, any grocery store, any process involves waste. I carry around everything that I think I will need for the day. Coffee cup, water bottle, reusable utensils, a cloth napkin. I want to make sure that no matter where I am and what situation I'm in, I have everything I need so I don't need to use anything disposable. I even took my strawberries out of the crate and I just put them in my bag directly.
Wow, yeah.
Otherwise I just get home and I just throw the things away.
That's it.
Yeah. So there's this organization out in Pomona called the Growing Club, and they have CSA, which is Community Supported Agriculture. It's a small urban farm that grows produce, fruits and vegetables. You pay them a monthly fee, and in return they bring you fresh produce that was locally grown. It's great because you literally know exactly where your food came from. They invited me to their farm, Sarvodaya Farms in Pomona, small urban farm. It's literally on a plot of land that has a little 1,000-square-foot house, and behind it has rows and rows of produce. It has an orchard with trees. Every month they have this thing called Compost, Coffee, and Conversation. It's an opportunity to have someone come speak about what they do. In this case, they had me talk about zero waste and as it relates to growing your own food, living more sustainably, eating organic food. And what they do is they have everyone come, you bring your food scraps, you dump your food scraps into a fresh compost pile. The master gardener there explains to you how composting works, what its benefits are. Then afterwards, you have a meal together, everyone brings food. It's a great way to build community while learning about where your food actually comes from and what happens to it, or at least what should happen to it when you are done with it, when you just have the scraps. I found myself just 12 hours a day, on these conveyor belts, just watching all this stuff just go on the conveyor belts. There was disposable diapers, water bottles, low quality consumer goods. It drove me crazy. I grew up in the Bay Area feeling very environmentally friendly, environmentally conscious, and over the years, maybe I lost my way. And working in that warehouse reminded me that hey, this is not what I'm about. Their values do not align with my values. So I did what every crazy person does. I quit my job without one lined up. I started doing environmental compliance for some of the garbage companies in Southern California. From doing that, it segued into working with businesses directly on ways in which they could reduce waste. Because when you go to their dumpster and you say, hey, you're throwing away all these styrofoam cups, you're throwing away all these plastic utensils, you're throwing away all this edible food or all these food scraps, if you made these little small changes, you tweak these processes, your customers really wouldn't see anything different. You'll save more money in your garbage bill and become more environmentally friendly at the same time. After spending a lot of time working with businesses and waste haulers and municipalities, people started asking me what they could do to live a more sustainable life. And after getting asked enough times the same exact question, like this little thing like sparked in my head, like, oh, maybe I should do something about it. Like, let's start a blog. I know it seems like cliche these days, there's blogs about everything. But I decided to start this blog, and I called it Zero Waste Guy. This was back in 2015. It was very, almost like drawing a line in the sand, because by declaring myself as Zero Waste Guy, I'm saying this is not just what I do for work, this is who I am. I do my best to try and influence and inspire others to reduce their waste, but really when it's all said and done, I have to lead by example. And I want to leave a positive legacy. As far as everyday life is concerned, I tell people just be really mindful of the choices you make. You don't need to buy something new. I've repaired this pair of jeans I'm wearing like 3 or 4 times now. I've patched them up where they start getting frayed. And that's a great way to live with less waste, live more mindful. It's just like, use up the stuff you have. There's this misconception that if you want to be zero waste, you have to just go buy a bunch of stuff. Well, if you already have a coffee cup, you don't need to buy a reusable coffee cup. If you already have some utensils, you don't need to buy a fancy little kit that has different sporks and forks and knives and whatever in it. You can just use the stuff that you already have. I will say that depending on where you live, if you don't have access to like a farmer's market, and the grocery store you go to has everything plastic wrapped, then yes, it could be more challenging. But what I would ask of you is just to be mindful of the things that you do have control over.